Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany Hansen with Hooked for Hope. Today I'm going to show you 5 different techniques on how to join 2 yarns together. I did notice in researching all the different methods that yarn joining was directly correlated to weaving in your ends. So this is a joint video where I'm going to be talking about both joining 2 yarns together in your project and techniques on how to weave in your ends. Sound good? Just really quickly, if at any point in this video you do like what you see, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. That way you don't miss any of my videos. So how I'm going to do the technique video, I'm going to first explain the name of the technique. Then I'm going to show you an example of the technique, then show you how to do the technique, and then I will explain if there is a pro or con for that technique. Maybe there's a certain material that it won't work for, or it works great with all materials. So I will make sure to point that out. If you are curious about trying all these techniques, the materials that you will want to have on hand are a yarn needle or a tapestry needle. You'll want a pair of scissors. You should already have your crochet hook with you, but if you don't, make sure you have your crochet hook, your yarn, and the very last technique that I will be talking about is the fabric glue. So you don't have to have the fabric glue, but I do want to talk about it and give you some pros and cons on using it. Sound good? All right, the very first technique I'm actually not going to demonstrate. It's called spit splicing. And I have a thing about fibers in my mouth. So I am not going to demonstrate spit splicing, but I will put in the note section below a direct link to somebody who does do a great demonstration of what spit splicing is. In order to do spit splicing, you have to be using a yarn that is, the fibers of that yarn are from an animal, like an alpaca or a sheep or an actual animal, because what you are doing is you are adding your saliva into or onto the 2 pieces of yarn and just rolling them together. And by doing that, the material fibers cling to each other and end up creating a seamless connection, which a lot of people find incredible, absolutely amazing. It's invisible. It just completely bonds the 2 yarns together. I just have a thing about fibers in my mouth. So I want to address it. I want to let you know that it is a technique, but I'm just not going to be performing it. But let's go ahead and dive straight into the other 4 techniques that I will be showing you. All right, so for the Russian join, all you're going to do is, so you have your work, right? And you're working, and then you notice that the remaining amount of yarn that you have on your skein is not enough to continue. So you need to add another skein so you can continue working on your work. So I'm going to use a different color just so you can see the process of the Russian join. So you take your work, take the yarn that's attached to your work, lay it flat like that, okay? Take your new skein that you want to join and start working into and lay it flat going that way, okay? Take this yarn, lay it over the top of the other, take this yarn and bring it back towards itself. So now they have this thing going on, okay? Great. You're going to want your tapestry needle or your yarn needle. Go ahead and pick one side, doesn't matter which side you start with, and thread your needle. Okay, you're going to go ahead and we're going to be working back inside the fibers of this yarn that we just worked in, or back upon itself, okay? So if you take your yarn and you untwist it, you'll start to see all these different yarn threads, okay? You're going to be sticking the tip of your needle in between these threads, okay? So I will pick up one thread and then I will skip the next thread. I'll go over and then under the next thread, then over, under, over, under, over, under. All right, and I'll just weave my needle in and out of that yarn, picking up fibers, picking up the strings. I'm going to go over one and then under the next one, over, under, until I have reached a point where I think I'm good. I think I've gone far enough. Keep these bunching on your needle until you're ready. And then all you're going to do, guys, I'm going to take this yarn, I'm going to pull it a little bit, get rid of some of that slack, give myself just a little bit. See that right there? I don't have like a big hole. I don't want to have a big hole right there. I want to pull that so it's small. And then I'm going to pull my needle through all those fibers. Okay. I want the other side of the yarn to come with it. There you go. Okay, so when you pull the yarn that is still attached to your skein down, the end is now stuck inside of that yarn. And then you'll take your scissors and you'll just cut right up next to the yarn, just like that. And it is sucked inside. Perfect. Okay, next you're going to do the other side. Make sure that this is joined and isn't going anywhere. Okay, so I've got all the bunching right there. I'm going to take my little string, I'm going to tighten up the slack. Oh, there we go. I'm going to tighten up the slack a little bit. So I just have a little piece for my needle to get through. I'm going to hold these back and pull my needle. Get that yarn to come all the way through. Okay, stretch that out. And now that side of the yarn is sucked into itself. Grab my scissors, cut off that slack, and there you guys go. Now they are seamless. They are not going anywhere. I will not have to go back and weave in any ends because they're already woven in. And when I continue to crochet, it just doesn't skip a beat. Pretty awesome, right guys? And then if you have any little bits still sticking out over on your work, you just cut those and pull the work bit and they just get sucked in, but they're not going anywhere because that was quite a bit. Here is this. That's quite a bit of a tail that's tucked back inside itself. Okay guys, so no matter how much you pull, no matter how much little tail you have to trim, you're safe. That is a very secure join. Okay, so the Russian join will work great for most yarns as long as the yarn has different strings that you can insert your needle. Okay, there are yarns that this will not work for. The yarns that you won't be able to do the Russian twist would be any kind of ribbon yarn, silk yarn, or any kind of strings that they just won't work because they have nothing to weave back into. Okay, nothing to weave back into. But that is the Russian join. All right, the next join is an invisible knot, way 1. So there's 2 different ways you can do an invisible knot that I found, okay? So this is how it looks, okay? So if you were to use it in a project, this is how it'll look. Again, the color change is muddied, so you will not ideally want to use this if you're going to be going from one color to another. You'll want to try a different method, probably wait till you get to the end and then just cut your yarn off early and then just start a whole new row with a different color. But if you are going from one color to the exact same color, this will work. It's called the invisible knot. And how you will make this happen, okay, we're going to pretend that this is your work that you've been working on, okay, this little tiny tail. And then your skein is empty. So you're like, oh no, I'm going to have to attach a new skein so I can continue my work. So grab your new skein that you want to start working with. And how you will do this invisible knot is you'll have this yarn, the remaining skein attached to your work. You'll take this yarn, the new skein that you want to attach to your work, and you'll go with one going this way and one going that way. Butt them up right next to each other, like really intertwine them a bit. Okay, you'll take your finger, you'll wrap them both around your finger, okay? Take the tail and tuck the tail underneath both of those yarns. Okay, little tail tucked underneath both those yarns. Remove your finger. Okay, pull that little tail, and what it did is it made a little knot around your other color. Okay, go ahead and slide down to the other end. Take your two yarns, wrap them both around your finger, drop the main color, take the one with the tiny tail, and tuck it underneath, just like that, okay? Remove your finger, pull the tiny tail, and now it formed a knot on that end. So now you'll have a little knot on this end and a little knot on that end. What you're gonna do now is you're going to take the yarn that's attached to your work, okay, that yarn, and the yarn that's attached to your new skein, and you're gonna slowly pull them, and it brings those two knots together. Boom, pull it tight even to really secure, and you're good. Now all you will do is you will trim off the little tails, just like that. And then you are ready to continue crocheting. Okay, so then you just don't even skip a beat. Okay? So in this case, you're going to want to look at your knots. Just make sure that they don't have a really long, obvious tail still. But this, if you were having the exact same colors, you would not see that at all. It would be a complete invisible crossover. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so that's invisible knot number one. Let's move on to invisible knot number two. All right, with invisible knot number two, it will look like this knot right here. Again, it'll be another one of those joins that will look best if both of the yarn colors are the exact same color. Here is what it will look like in a piece of work, a little example swatch. You have the little tails coming through, but again, if this was all the same color, it would not be an easy to identify an obvious join right there. It would be still difficult to see, practically invisible. Okay? Okay, so invisible knot number two. So we got our work here that we've been working on. We have our tail and we realize, oh no, we are running out of material, running out of yarn. I need to attach a new skein of yarn. Okay, so I grab my new skein of yarn and got my color right there. Okay, so I take my work that I've been working on, the tail, and I'm gonna make a sideways U shape with it. Okay, so a sideways U. I'm going to take my new color, and I'm going to come underneath my old color. Okay, so under, then go over and tuck it underneath again. Okay, so under, then over, and then under. I'm gonna go ahead and pull some slack for me. There we go. Bring this yarn over to the other side, and I'm gonna go under. Okay, so under, then over, and under again. Pull it down like that. Okay, so now this will form a U going this way. This will form a U going this way. And all I did is I went under, then over, then under, then under, over, under, and out. I'm gonna grab my 2 brown yarns, grab my 2 pink yarns, and I'm gonna pull, and that forms invisible knot number 2. Okay, so now I'm going to just go ahead and cut off my long tails. Long tail, great. And I'm going to continue working on my project. There it is. And I don't skip a beat. I just keep going. I don't have to worry about weaving in my ends. It's already done for me with a very secure yarn join. Perfect. If you see your yarn join and there's still quite a bit of a tail there, you can always trim it back, and that's a pretty secure knot. Okay, so secure knots are going to work great for any type of yarn because you're not having to weave anything in. So any silks, any strings, any lace, any regular yarn, it's all going to work great. The invisible knots are going to work great for a yarn join. All right, guys, so we just did 3 different yarn joins. One was the Russian join, then 2 different examples of an invisible knot. The 4th way that you can join yarns together, so I've got work here. How you could also join, take a new color, take the 2 ends of the yarn, okay, wrap them both around your finger, tuck both tails in inside that circle, and pull them, and that would be a join. Okay, now watch what happens as I continue my work. Okay, so I'm crocheting. Oh, I came upon my join, so I could do either crochet over it where I lay it flat against my work and I just crochet over it. All right, by doing this, it just tucks it all into the project, okay? And you didn't have to weave anything in, you just crocheted right on top of it. The pros is now you don't have anything to worry about at the end of the work because you already took care of covering up the ends. The cons is this is not a very reliable way of keeping your ends woven in. Let's say that these tails were super long. If we laid these super long tails on our work and we crocheted over them, eventually somehow either it be the washing machine or something starts to bubble out a little bit and someone picks at it and then the whole tail comes out. Eventually that tail does work its way out. Some people have had incredible luck where it never has, but others it just happens. So that is one way. Another way that people will go about doing their ends, let's say this color change right here that I've already done, okay? So with this color change, with the blue and the brown, one thing that somebody could do, take your yarn needle, weave in that, okay? You weave in your end, okay? So I'll take You want to weave your yarn into the same color. You don't want to weave one color into another because it becomes an eyesore. It's very, very obvious and it doesn't look good. So do your best if you do prefer or do try this method to weave in the end in the exact same color. So what you would do is you'd go into a straight line row. So this straight line right here, come in the side, and just kind of bury your needle through all of those stitches in that row. Okay? You want your tail to be really long when you are weaving in your ends. That way you can really get them stuck in the work. Okay? Go a ways in one direction, then turn around and go back. So I just worked in this row, so I'm going to go up one and I'm going to go backwards. Okay, just weaving into the fibers, into the yarn, and pull it that direction. Okay, so some people had told me that they will just go one way and then back. Some people say they'll do that 2 more times where they'll go another or go back again. And then they'll come back upon the stitches 1 more time just to make sure nothing is moving. And they'll do that, okay? And then they will cut off their work, just like this, okay? And then their ends are woven in and it's not going anywhere and it's super secure, okay? Another method that I saw is if you take the yarn tail that is sticking out and you split it, so untwist it so all those fibers start to come apart, okay? And then you split them. There we go. Okay, if you split the yarn and then take half of it and put it in the crochet yarn needle, put it in the yarn needle, and then work your way into the work with one. And you don't have to even go in a straight line. You can go diagonal. You can just work your way any way you want through the stitches. Have fun with it. Go crazy with it. Even go in between yarns to secure. Okay? But another way of doing this, and then going doubling back on itself, by splitting the yarn, it's just another way of making it smaller and able to bond with other yarns in the row and just become extra secure with your weave all the way to the end. Okay? And then that yarn's not going anywhere. Okay? So that works too. The only thing that I would have to say is that is a lot of work. And that is one complaint that I hear from a lot of people when it comes to weaving in your ends, is it's a lot of work. And it's also a lot of yarn that you have to leave for a tail to weave in your ends. A lot of material that you could have used in your project. So that one is also hard for me because I will literally use my yarn up until I've got a little nub, or I will try to do my color changes on the shorter end because I want to use that yarn for the actual project and not actually think of it as a necessary tail to weave in my ends. So those are the 2 cons that I have with weaving in the ends, just 2 cons. But if you don't mind those things, it does leave a very secure weave of your ends, so you don't have to worry about them coming out. Okay, cool. The last option I want to talk about when it comes to weaving in your ends or joining two yarns together is the use of fabric glue. And to be honest, when I started talking about fabric glue in some of my other videos, I had no idea that the use of fabric glue was such a brand new concept. I thought it had been around for a while. So I've had some people absolutely love the use of the fabric glue, thinking it's a very genius idea, and I've had some people think that it's a complete abomination. So whichever way you feel about the fabric glue, the whole point of me bringing it up is just to add a little trick in your pocket if you need it, but if you never need it or never want to use it, you don't have to. So the reason I started using fabric glue is because, well, I've been crocheting for 30 years. And believe me, the thought and idea, realization that I've been crocheting for 30 years kind of hit me hard. I was like, oh my gosh, it's been 30 years. Well, I used to make blankets all the time for family, for friends, as gifts, all the time. And I got to the point where my ends were constantly coming out on my blankets, and it was really embarrassing. It just made me feel like my work wasn't very well done. It just looked sloppy, and it was not a great feeling having a family member call me in a panic when the ends came out of their blanket after it went through the washing machine, and they were so afraid that the blanket was coming undone. And I was like, no, it's not coming undone. The ends just came unwoven. And then I had another instance where I made a baby blanket, and the same thing happened, and I had to fix that. And it got to the point where I stopped making blankets altogether because I was just so embarrassed with my ends coming undone, coming unwoven out of the project and sticking out like weeds in a garden. It was not fun. So, like I said, I eventually stopped making blankets altogether, and I started making stuffed animals where I could just tuck my ends into the project and never even have to worry about it. But then I realized I really do enjoy making blankets. It's one of my favorite projects to do, but I needed to figure out how I could keep my ends from coming out of the work. And I was going through the craft store, and I came upon fabric glue, and I was like, well, that's interesting. I'm really curious about this. So I read the back, and it permanently bonds fibers together. It bonds fabrics together. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because crochet is yarn and fabrics, and we're talking about fibers. And the whole idea of using a glue that's meant to be used on fabrics, bonds fibers permanently, and that it would dry clear was revolutionary for me. I was like, I gotta try this. So a couple of years ago, when I first found fabric glue, I started trying this, but my project where I would use it, it would dry really hard, and it would become very uncomfortable, and it would be an eyesore. And I was like, oh no, this isn't working out for me. So I stopped using fabric glue for a little while until I found fabric glue that could dry flexibly. And when I found a glue that could dry flexibly, it was the game changer for me. And I've been using fabric glue ever since to weave my ends. And when you use the fabric glue, it dries clear, completely invisible, can't even see that it's there. The fact that it dries flexibly is awesome because now there's no hard spot. It completely just looks like the yarn somehow stuck to itself. It's so cool. It's machine washable and dryable. So I had some people ask me about if it was toxic, and to be honest, if you're worried about the safety of fabric glue, just read the instructions on the back and you're fine. I've been using fabric glue on my projects, on all of my projects for years now, and I haven't had any problems, any complaints. I haven't had any allergies or anything come back to alarm me at all. But if you choose not to use a fabric glue just because you just want to be, safe and keep yourself feeling comfortable, that's absolutely fine. Again, this is just supposed to be a trick in your back pocket. It's not supposed to be something that takes away weaving in your ends so you never have to do it again. I mean, you can do both, absolutely. Another really cool thing about fabric glue is that it lasts for a very long time. You use just the smallest bit on your projects, which I'm about to show you. I've had this bottle for over a year, and I have made over 100 different projects, and I still have about just shy of a half a bottle left of this fabric glue. So when you get this, it actually lasts a really long time. It's not meant to be something that will be a 3-month bottle. It'll last you quite a while. So how you're going to use the fabric glue, say you come to the end of your work and that was how much yarn was left in your skein, and you're like, okay, that might not be enough left for, I'm going to even cut it shorter. Okay, you're left with this much. Like, that's how much was left on your skein. Or maybe you did trim your yarn too short and you're like, that is not enough yarn to weave into my project securely the way I would ideally like. You can absolutely still try and get it done, but if you are concerned at all about that end coming undone, all you do is weave that end back into your project. Weave, weave, weave. Okay, until either you can't weave anymore or you've woven that yarn enough into the project where you're like, okay, that's good. Okay, you will take that little tail and we will be tucking it underneath the next stitch. Okay, so taking the tail, I'm going to fold it underneath and align it with that next stitch right there. I see it comes out just a little bit, so I'm going to trim it so that it lies directly underneath that next stitch. I'm going to take my fabric glue, going to put little drop. That's it, guys. That little bit right there. Teeny tiny little bit right there. You just fold your yarn over the top of it, mold it, kind of shove it, place it where you want, pinch it so the fibers bond together, and just keep manipulating it until it looks exactly how you want it to look, and you're done. That's so fast and a permanent bond that you can throw in the washing machine, throw in the dryer, or any other way that your yarn label specifies for care instructions for your yarn, and you're done. Now let's say that you are attaching yarn. It's not the end of your project and you're attaching. So in this regard, you would line up your two ends like that. Wrap them around your finger. Tuck those two tails inside the ring. Okay. So now you're left with this kind of a bond, a connection for joining your yarn. Okay. So you are working with your work, going, crocheting. Okay. And you are ready to go back and weave in your ends and clean up your work. You finish your project, you're ready to clean up your work. Okay, so you've got these two yarns sticking out like weeds in a garden. So what you're going to do is you're going to weave that work back into your project. Hopefully you are using the same yarn. If not, just make sure that one color goes along its same color, the other goes along its same color. Okay. And when you have finished weaving the way you want it to be, so I'll go in this way, go in that way. Okay, so my tails are really short, real tiny short. You'll grab that fabric glue. You'll just put the smallest little bit right there and then lay it flat across, kind of pet it down. And then over here, just the smallest little bit and lay it across and pat it down so those fibers bond together. And then you are done. And you don't have to worry about those tiny little yarns coming out of your work ever. Cool. Okay, so the pros to using the fabric glue is that it's a very fast method to use. It works up very quickly. You just weave in your ends real quick and glue them down. Second, this will last for many, many projects. Like I said, I've been using this small bottle, 4-ounce bottle, for over a year. I have used it on over 100 different products and projects, and I still have just shy of a half a bottle left. It's also something that if you have you only have a little tiny tail left in your work and you don't have enough, it doesn't feel comfortable being enough to just weave in with a yarn needle or a tapestry needle, then the fabric glue will save the day. It'll be just that quick little trick to quickly get that end woven in, and it's machine washable and dryable, so you can just throw your project into the washer or dryer when you are done, if you are concerned at all about any kind of toxins. Again, if you are concerned about toxins, just read the label on the back on how to take care of those. And like I said, I've been using this for years and I haven't had any problems, but if you don't feel comfortable, then don't use it. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable at all. Cons to using fabric glue is that you have to be very, very careful to make sure that you get the one that dries flexibly, because if you don't get the one that dries flexibly, it will dry rock hard and it's just uncomfortable and a bit of an eyesore. Another con is if you are at all sensitive and just worry about the fact of using glue on your products, then don't. Another con would be that it's another product that you have to purchase. Okay? Instead of just using the weave in that's free, it's an extra thing that you have to buy. So there you go. All right, guys, so those are the 5 different techniques that I was able to find on joining 2 yarns together and weaving in your ends. I actually surprised myself in the making of this video that I fell in love with the Russian join technique. I do plan on using that technique on a more regular basis. It just seemed to work really well for me. I hope in this video you were able to identify a method that might have worked for you in the past or might be something you're excited to try with your next project. It's great when you have growth and you learn something new as a crocheter and just keep growing. It's a lot of fun, especially when you find a technique that works better for you than something that you're currently doing. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel and check out these videos right here, more basics that you might enjoy, and check out this video right here. It is just one that's recommended for you. I always enjoy crocheting with you. I hope you enjoyed working with me. I will see you with my next video, guys. Bye.